Well, I told you guys with these Boeing strikes that some of these people are going to be let go. And here we go. So this is what's going on. And Boeing is cutting 10% of their workforce, and they're blaming that the machinist strikes are a key feature on why they let these people go. Boeing is laying off 10% of the company and blame the machinist strike. So a little bit of background, if you're just watching this video and you haven't seen my other ones, most of these Boeing employees were on strike for better working condition, and they wanted to have an aircraft manufactured in their place where they were working so they can have job guarantee down the line. And Boeing said, no, we're not going to do that. Since the Boeing strike began, one that some analysts estimated is losing the company $15 million a day, Boeing has also furloughed much of its staff. So now we're looking at all these drama going on with Boeing, that they are having problems with their production and the strikes. And they wanted to have, I had this in my other video, they wanted to manufacture their aircraft in the United States, what I think is a genius idea. And some other key factor that they wanted more money. And I think there was a pension, and they set the pensions off the table, and some other stuff's off the table too, because they're already building stuff in Mexico. So they're like, yeah, we're not going to do any of that. And people said always, oh, the union's going to protect you from your job. The sole purpose of the union is to advocate for you. And when you have a situation like this where your union overplays their hand, it's almost like poker. You play your hand and you hope that they'll bite. And in this case, they're like, nah. Because Boeing is such a huge company that they said, you know what, we're just going to start furloughing people, and we're just going to move stuff to Mexico. And in Mexico, they're going to be preached with open hands, saying, yes, come manufacture with us, come manufacture with us. And then you just import it, and everybody else that is like furloughed and doing all these other things going to have to find another job. It's super tragic when you think about it, when they're like, hey, we're going to make more money, and so we're just going to move overseas, or, down to Mexico. And now you're like, man, it is a brutal world when it comes to tech jobs, when it comes to machinists in 2024, because everybody is on the chopping block. This year has been everybody trimmed down. I think in 2025, it's going to be the managers that are going to be let go, because they're starting to redo all these organizations, and Amazon has already said, we're going to let go managers, we're going to flatten out the organization and make it better and trim the fat. So what they did first, and this is my understanding of it, first you trim the workers, then you trim the managers, and you keep the C-suite, because a C-suite executive is the one that's going to be advocating for you. It's going to be like saying, hey, we shouldn't cut this department, we're going to do this department. And they're going to be with the ones that are calling the shots. So they're never going to be telling each other, hey, I'm going to cut your job. No. It's going to be like, let's cut under you. Let's have the jobs cut be underneath of you. So they're going to be job security. They have job security. And yeah, they're good. But you, underneath that C-suite, is going to have no job security. And that is something to be thinking about, because people say, hey, it's always so brutal when these people are being let go. And now it started me to think about it, like, hey, if we're letting all these people go, right? We're letting all these frontline workers go. That's always the first to go. Then Amazon said in 2025 they're going to cut managers. And so then we're going to see these organizations run really flat. And one thing that was really interesting to me was, how are all these companies are going to scale up again? Because if demand is going to go up, then they got to rehire these people. And I don't know if every company is going to have, how every company is going to scale up again. Are they going to hire in the United States, or are they going to hire abroad? And I think a lot of these companies are going to hire abroad because of cheaper wages, better conditions for them, and they don't have responsibilities. And they're not going to get into these $50 million day losses. So that's what they're going to try and do. And as a business owner, as a shareholder, you should agree with that because that makes the stock go up. But on the other hand, these stock buybacks have been ruining the companies, has been ruining everything, because you see here, I have a graph of how many companies did stock buybacks. And so now you're like, man, all these companies make the stock go up because they all allocated hundreds of millions of dollars to do stock buybacks in order for you to get more money. And most of the time, this came at a cost of an employee. So now I'm wondering, how much has that affected the common worker? Because if the common worker is making about $50,000 or 60, 70, and you take their paycheck away and they're not going to contribute into the economy, in the long term, it is way, way more hurtful to actually let these people go than to keep them at work and just say, hey, we're not going to do stock buybacks. We're just going to let the company take its thing, do its thing. And if you want to buy the stock, great. If not, then not. But in a greater sense of the economy, it's great. But the owners don't want that, right? And so it's almost like we need to change the owner's mind shift of actually saying, hey, if we change the mind shift of all these owners and say, hey, you know, this is steady growth rather than exponential growth, where we're just gonna buy it all back and basically just handing them checks. So this is how I kind of feel about these buybacks. Is basically what they do is they just go out and say, hey, you know what, shareholders, we're going to do a buyback. So all your shares are going to be worth more money. And for you and me, for the common folks, it's not going to make a huge difference. $400 million in stock buybacks, what's that going to do? But guess who's is going to really, really help? It's these big Wall Street investors that own hundreds of thousands of shares. And all of a sudden, when you own hundreds of thousands of shares of a company and companies are going to do stock buybacks, it's going to really make a difference on your balance sheet. And like I said a few videos back, that BlackRock, one of these biggest investment companies, and State Farm and all these, and Vanguard, all of them own companies and all of them have interest and they have portfolios. And they manage real estate portfolios, they manage company portfolios, they manage all these kind of other things. And I looked at the BlackRock portfolio, and they own a company, they own a huge part of Salesforce, and they also own the company that rents the office buildings to Salesforce. And so now Salesforce can come in and say, oh, we save money if we'd move everything to remote. And we would save money. Salesforce, exactly, forgot the name. But then Salesforce would actually have to pay out. Salesforce would actually stop paying these rental dues, and it's like of like $800 million. And then this other company that BlackRock also owns would have a negative in the balance sheet because this other company that they own would actually not be doing so well. So if you're owned by one of these huge conglomerates, investment companies, don't tell me that they're not going to give deals to each other and say, hey, Salesforce is going to open up another headquarters somewhere or another thing. And guess who's going to get the lease deal? Oh, it's going to be that company that BlackRock also owns. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's a free market, right? So these are all things that are going on. And I'm not talking about small deals. I'm talking about these multi-mega million deals. Because nobody's going to want to just say, hey, we're just going to rent an office space and it's going to be $10, $20, $30, $50,000 a month. On their balance sheet, that doesn't even bug them. But when it's going to come to hundreds and millions, that's what's going to be really interesting, right? And so all these stock buybacks, all these furloughed workers, and these Boeing companies doing with the unions, it's just a pawn. We are all just little pawns that they move around on a bigger checkboard to see where we end and where the dice fall. And now, when you're like, what does that mean for me? Well, that's going to be interesting because we're seeing unemployment has ticked up last month. Now we're seeing more unemployment with these Boeing people. And now we're seeing stuff with Hurricane Helene and other hurricanes. that they're going to start telling people, hey, you cannot keep coming to work because there is no work. So if you lost your house and you lost your job, you're in a triple double whammy, right? Because there is nothing that you can do besides moving to get that back. And now there's been articles out, and I've heard this on a podcast, that these insurance companies need to underwrite these policies, right? So when you are an insurance company, you also get reassurance from the state to make it so these insurance companies go into your state. And the state of Florida capped that insurance policy at like $17 billion. I heard on a podcast that they capped that. So now, if you're a business owner, your losses are, or a common person, your losses cannot exceed $17 billion in total. So now everything above that is going to be no money. And guess who's not going to get anything? You, that's watching this video. Because you and I, and this isn't just you, this would also be me, because you and I don't have the money to fight this and buy the lawyers, do all this kind of stuff, and we would just walk away because the common folks always get the short end of the stick. And it is the same thing with unions. It's like, yeah, they're there to protect you from layoffs and from other stuff, but then they reorg, they do stuff, and the sole purpose of the union is to collect their dues because they need a job too. And even though they say, oh, we're going to advocate for you, I see it more as an insurance policy. I see it almost like the union is like, hey, we can help you negotiate better salaries and we can help you do better working environment. But at the end of the day, if the company wants you gone, union or not, you're out. They'll find some ways to say, yeah, we're going to do restructuring and we're going to close down. And maybe you get a year more of work because of the union, or maybe not. This is all up to how much a company likes you. And so sometimes I think as a independent worker, you're almost better off because you can then decide for yourself when it's time to leave, what kind of conditions you want, and negotiate your contract. And then when you negotiate on your behalf, then you can actually say, your hourly rate and all these other stuff. But not everybody has or wants to have that because that individuality isn't as good as a collective. And then people say, the collective of all these people that the contract gets negotiated with is way, way better. And I get why, because you have the herd mentality. But now, instead of just letting individuals go, they're going to let the herd go. And you see these sheep running towards a cliff. And that's kind of what I feel like, is like when they're running towards a cliff, they all just fall off because they follow on each other. And if the union can't stop you and negotiate a good contract, then you're kind of doomed. And I feel like it's really dependent on the contract that's negotiated and how good your union's rep are and how good your union is. If your union is phenomenal, then you're good. But if your union is real shitty and they don't care about you and just collect the dues, you're done. So it's also, you can't just throw all of them in a bucket because I think there's some of them that actually are pretty decent, and there's probably way more that do shady stuff and do crooked things. And when you're in a situation like that, then you're just kind of doomed. And I don't know I've never worked with a union from any of these places. When I was in Switzerland, they always asked me to join one, and it was called Unia, and it was just a scammy vibe from these people. They were always just like, oh, we'll bring croissants and we'll bring other stuff to your job sites and we'll do all these other things. And it was always these cheesy like salespeople. And you knew, at least in Switzerland, I always knew that you are not, as soon as you sign with them, they're going to forget about you. And I think if you're in the teachers union or something else, then there might be really good union reps. But the ones that I've seen were just sleazy salespeople that had no interest in actually helping you out. It was just them just trying to get your union dues. But then again, I've never been in a spot in the United States where these unions are actually helping or, help me out. So if that is, let me know in the comments below, because I only had these cheesy sales reps that were like, you know, the used car dealers that were just sleazy people. And yeah, this is it. Let me know what you think about this video. And it's gorgeous out in Las Vegas, and it is starting to get a little colder. As you can see, I'm wearing my jacket again. It's this time of season, and it looks like I'm going to be heading to Florida in about 2 weeks. So like and subscribe. We're going to talk to some business owners. We're going to see how it actually affected all these people down there. So great contacts coming. I'm here with my family, so I haven't uploaded over the weekend. I was getting the house ready. I had some other business to take care of with Career Catalyst. That's the job search stuff I run with Ali. So I had some business going there. So let me know what you guys think. And I love you guys. You guys are amazing. If you have any questions or you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, go ahead, do that. And yeah, shoot me an email if you have any topics, requests, or anything. And consider joining the membership. I'll see you guys tomorrow.